All right, my friends, welcome in. This is Just Stamp with Anna Marie. Today we are creating gratitude cards with the Label Me Grateful bundle. All of my supplies are going to be Stampin' Up, so I'm going to call them out as we go step by step, just running through some of the tools and supplies I'm using beforehand. So I mentioned the bundle. It is called Label Me Grateful, and it is a stamp set of sentiments, beautiful gratitude sentiments. And it does have a coordinating die set that cuts branches, flowers, acorns, so sweet, some oak leaves, and some nice greenery. So I did use both of these, the stamp set and the die set, to create. One more thing, let me talk about the beautiful paper that's included in the cards today. So this is the Autumn Toile paper, absolutely gorgeous. This is my favorite pattern in the pack. And of course, there's always a backside with a nice, soft, neutral background. We have some beautiful stripes. And the back has these foxes on it, which would be a great background for a card too. The colors are Cajun Craze, Early Espresso, Crumb Cake, Ivory. There's that beautiful toile scene with those trees and the deer, and a nice grid Early Espresso background. Beautiful leaves, falling leaves. These kind of mimic the pattern on the embossing folder that we're going to be using. And then one more pattern, those mallard ducks, I guess they're pheasants on a lake. Absolutely beautiful paper. What I love about this pack is that you get 3 sheets of each pattern, which gives you plenty if you are creating lots of cards. I will also be using this beautiful metallic paper. It is called Earth and Toned Metallic 12 by 12. It's a specialty paper, and I use it sparingly, just enough to add a little bit of sparkle. And we're ready for card number 1. So grateful for that heart of yours. So here is, it might be my favorite, not sure. I love the sentiment. So beautiful. So grateful for that heart of yours. This one's framed in a soft pecan pie frame and highlighted with the Cajun Craze flowers, some mossy meadow leaves. It is perfect for expressing gratitude, appreciation to someone whose kindness really matters. So let me walk you through creating it. I'm going to push that there and grab my kit. I will tell you what I am using. I'm starting off with a card base that is cut on a vertical orientation. So this is half a sheet of cardstock cut at 4 1/4 across. It's 11 inches tall, and I pre-scored it with that score line right down the middle. It helps create a beautiful crease. This is a top fold card. Hello, Debbie. Thank you for joining me on this beautiful fall day. I've got a basic beige card base, and I am going to add some of that striped designer series paper, and I don't have the measurements written down, so let's see if I can measure for you. This is 3 inches by 4 3/4. This is going to go straight onto the background. So tell me, do you like to add the pattern paper to your cards? Are you more of a stamping background person? I like the pattern papers. A lot of the times it does the heavy lifting for you with that beautiful background already. And next I'm going to add, I'm just going to start layering up. This is a frame created with the Gallery Blooms dies. And the nice thing about this die is that you get a twofer. We're actually going to get 2 frames out of the one cut. And you know what? I'm going to put this on with Stampin' Dimensionals, which I have at the ready. You're going to see the second part to this frame on another card. So it's pumpkin pie cut with that Gallery Blooms die. It makes a nice frame. And I'm going to elevate it with my standard size Stampin' Dimensionals here. The card kit that you receive will have all the papers and die cuts that you need. It will not have any stamped images, as that is against the Stampin' Up policy, and all of my supplies are Stampin' Up. So I'm just going to frame that out, kind of centered on the card there. And next we're going to do our stamping. So I'm going to bring in a die cut. This is the Stylish Shape Circle, cut in basic beige, and I am going to be stamping in early espresso. I'm going to give you one tip. So most of the time, stampers have a tendency to ink up and stamp down. I'm going to do a little bit reverse. I'm finding this is a little bit more foolproof. Sometimes you get that ghosted image around your stamped image, or that ghosted inking, I should say. So I like to flip the stamp over, put it on the desktop, and then bring my ink pad to my rubber stamp. And so my my step is to tap, tap, tap. I'm not gonna press hard. I'm trying to do overall inking with nice full force, but I don't want to get into, you can kind of see on that edging there, I don't want that outline of the images or even in between. And I'm going to stamp down, and I find that flipping the stamp over helps. So I've got So Grateful for That Heart of Yours. I'm going to bring that over, and we are just going to attach this also with Stampin' Dimensionals. And I'm telling you, these cards are simple. They do have die cutting involved and layering, and our last one's going to have some texturing as well. But overall, it's a simple design, easy layout. There's our focal point image, which happens to be the greeting in this case. I'm going to bring in some die cuts that I pre-die cut with the coordinating die set. These are the little branches, and I'm really pleased that Stampin' Up included 2 of those dies. So easy to cut in one pass. I love that. And this is just going to be secured down. Let's see. I'm gonna see if I can bring in my light a little bit better. There we go. Not sure if that's helpful or not. I'm just gonna add this with flat glue, also known as Tombow liquid glue, and just a few dots. And most of the time, if you just use a little, the liquid glue can be your best friend. I know some crafters who struggle with the liquid glue. It's mostly because we want to apply too much, and that's when it starts to ooze and it becomes a sticky mess, right? So I'm just adding my little branches, kind of framing out that sentiment in Mossy Meadow. Then I'm going to add another die cut. This is just a little foliage, and this is in Crumb Cake, so I'm adding extra color in to balance the card, give it more dimension, more interest, and again, just a little bit of the liquid glue. And I'm going to do the same for the top branch and add it. I'm going to flip, kind of following the line of the circle. So layering, embossing, they all add a little embellishment to the final card. So far we've got our foliage going on, our message going on. I have 2 of the flowers created from the die cuts, and I cut them in Cajun craze. And this too can go on with flat adhesive. So I'm going to be a little bit more generous with that glue on the flower. I'm pretty much putting it in the center, and I'm going to pop that right so. And we are nearly done with this card. We're going to add some final touches. So ribbon is a good embellishment, and in this case I've got this beautiful linen ribbon in basic beige, and I'm just tying a bow. I have a little extra here. Two ways to make that bow. You can use the little bunny ears, or I just do mine as I tie my shoes, which is pretty simple really. And tweak the ribbon, make it do what you want it to do. I'm going to add this kind of to the side of the card here with a glue dot. So glue dots are always my adhesive choice for ribbon. Well, at least I would say 98% of the time. And I'm going to put a couple of glue dots here. It's a little bit bulkier of a ribbon. And I'm just going to add it sort of at an angle. And I can tweak it still. Flop it there. And let's go ahead and trim that up with some ribbon scissors. Let's see, right here. And ribbon scissors just means that they do not cut paper. They only are reserved for fabric or ribbon. That keeps them sharp. One more thing, we're going to add some nice embellishments with these streaked dots. They're very pretty color. They're kind of like a pumpkin pie. And in this case, I'm going to use them on the flower centers. So I like to use my Take Your Pick tool because I know I need to kind of dig under and behind the embellishment to grab the dot, the glue dot. If you pick it off with your fingernail, a lot of times the glue dot stays behind. There we go. So grateful for that heart of yours. What a beautiful sentiment, right? So all of the elements working together, the die cut, the frame, the pattern paper, it all adds that power to your card. That's card number one. So grateful for that heart of yours. I'm going to move that aside. And we're coming up to card number two, which is a specialty fold. You are so appreciated. Next, what a beauty. This card is all about the soft neutrals and the cozy details again. I used some garden-inspired patterns, that beautiful harvest background that I mentioned earlier, and added the sweet bow with the acorn cluster. It's rustic but refined, and it's kind of like a fall farmhouse. That's what it reminds me of. So let's bring in my supplies again. I have pre-cut most of the die cuts so that we aren't using too much time on that. I am going to go through some of the building process on a little bit of, or another of the cards. So this time my card base is 4 1/4 by, let's see, I'm going to measure, by 9.5 inches. And so it's pretty much the standard card base, but I cut off 1.5 inches just so that the framed sentiment can kind of peek over into the insert. So again, it was scored on the 5.5 inch mark. I'm going to go ahead and add my pretty pattern paper, which happens to measure 4 inches by 4 inches. And again, it's my favorite, just the leaves and the pumpkins. I think it's super pretty with the colors. And it's just my favorite from the pack. On the flip side is also a beautiful neutral pattern kind of graphics, which would be a beautiful background for layering as well. I'm using, look how little liquid glue I use. So just a tiny little trail, and notice how I don't go up to the end of the paper. I'm usually about 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch in, because when you press down, that glue is going to move outward and you don't want it to ooze out. So let's do that. We're next going to add our insert where we can write our handwritten message. I'm going to open that up. This one measures 4 inches by 5 1/4. And again, I'm using liquid glue, but just a little. and I'm bringing it in about 1/4 of an inch from the border. There we go. Let's bring in our stamped layer, which is a piece of basic white paper. And this one measures, let's see, I'm gonna bring in my little ruler, and it measures 4 1/4 by 2 1/2. This is what we're gonna be stamping on, and we're gonna stamp our greeting from the stamp set. By the way, I pre-mounted these on the acrylic blocks. This is block D, as was the other. Block D is probably the block I used about 75% of the time. If you only have one block or a couple, D would most likely be one of the ones that you need. Okay, you saw how I inked up, just as I mentioned on the first card. Now I'm going to flip this over, and I'm going to stamp down, mostly to the right. You are appreciated. There we go. And you know what? I feel like that's kind of slanted. I'm going to try again. Now I know. I think. And it's tap, tap, tap. Don't smush down, otherwise you get ink, more ink than you want. And I'm going to raise it to the right a tiny bit. There we go. Take 2. That's, my friend, one of the reasons that I prefer not to glue first. I'd rather stamp first, and hopefully I'm on the right side of that. I hope it's going to work out for me. Let's see. I might have to do a backing on the inside. So just for a little bit more rustic feel, I'm going to add a little bit of splatter. So you can kind of see it on my original here. I'm going to take my Stampin' Right marker, and I'm just going to take it and flick it right onto my paper. And you can do as little or as much as you want. Some people prefer none. Some people like it heavier. So you go to your preference. I'm going to do a really light spray. Just a tiny bit. It gives that little worn look. I'll bring it up so you can see. You can barely see, right? So this gets attached to my frame. Remember on the first card I said we had a 2-part frame going on. Whoops. And I can see I'm probably stamped over a little bit too much, because if I center it, it's going to be off a little. So let's push that over just the tiniest bit. This is flat adhered. So let's do this. We'll go ahead and attach it on here. And we're going to do a little bit of trimming there. And I'm just going to trim that off with my paper snips. I'll use the frame as my guide. Very easy to cut a straight line when you have a guide. Okay, this then gets flat adhered onto our card front. It's pretty much centered, and I'm going to use liquid glue. And this is what I was saying. Hopefully my goof won't be visible from the inside. So let's see. If it is, we can always add a back layer. All right, so we have our focal point frame going on. Next, I'm going to add my die cuts. These come from the coordinating die set, and I've got oak leaves and mossy meadow. I'm going to put down first 1 oak leaf pair, and I'm going to bring them down sort of low. I'm going to bring in my die cut of the acorns, and this uses that earthen metallic paper. You can see the shine. It's got like a copper tone to it. This is going to go down, and I'm going to kind of hug it in my, let's see, in my mossy meadow leaves. just like so. And let's put a little bit of glue behind, and let's put this down right around. Let's see. I don't want to interrupt my message. There we go. And just stick that down. I have one more little twig, that crumb cake twig, and I'm going to fill that in to add a little bit more foliage right in back. There we go. And again, it's kind of like flower arranging, so if you put in your individual die cuts where they need to go just by balancing. I'm going to bring in another piece of that pretty linen ribbon, and this time I'm going to do the bunny ears. So I'm just going to take about, what would that be, a third of the way through, bring it in through the center, and tie my ribbon. You know, I think I have more success my way. I've watched other crafters with the bunny ears, and I think it's just a matter of what you lean toward, because there we go. It's a little bit too loopy, so let's bring that in down just a tiny bit. And again, mini glue dots to attach. And I never touch the glue dot. Once you touch the glue dot is going to win. I know that. How do I speak from experience. Okay, there's my pretty bow with the linen ribbon. And I'm going to bring in, again, my ribbon scissors. Let's see what happened to them. Right here. And I'm just going to snip that down a little bit shorter with my little ribbon ends. Bring that in just a tiny bit. There we go. Now we'll add our embellishments, and I'm going to bring it back in my streak dots. And I want the smaller ones, so I have a whole sheet of the smaller dots here. So let's do a little trio. One with the flowers. We're going to bring two over here. And where you place the dots is, again, preference. I do like threes, and usually it's some kind of a triangle. So you've got that embellishment going on. All right, you are so appreciated. There's our second card with the Label Me Garden bundle. We've got two, and we have another one still. This is a, let's see, the classic thank you design, I'm calling it. Here we go. We have more things going on this card. I love how this one feels like your favorite fall sweater. So check out that little texture that we created. And we're going to start again with that very vanilla card base. And it's 4 1/4 by 11, scored at 5.5, the standard. So all of these cards so far have been the top folding card. We are going to add our pattern paper. This time I'm using that Tone on Tone Toile pattern. Again, probably the pumpkin and the trees are my favorite pattern. However, the graphics and the stripes are perfect generic backgrounds that mingle well with the other patterns. So we're doing a patterned layer, flat adhered. We are going to do some texturizing, and I left that undone so that I could share with you, let me move this over, how you create the sandwich for the 3D embossing folders. So this is the Gathering Leaves embossing folder. You can see it's large, which means we are going to need the standard size cut and emboss machine. And I'm going to bring it in just at the edge of the camera and tell you how to sandwich it. So this is what some crafters struggle with on these embossing folders, but I will say help is on the platform itself. So we're going to come down to this lower graphic that says using with 3D embossing folders, and it has the sandwich that you need right on the platform. So we need platform number 1, which is this thicker platform. We need the embossing folder with the paper slipped right inside. So here's what that looks like, right? Okay, paper right inside. And then finally we need pad number 4. So pad number 4 is the gray pad. I'm going to sandwich that up and I'm going to crank it through, and my machine is going to sound like it's breaking, but it's not. So, there we go. That little final crank means it's done. Put that aside. There's my folder with my embossing layer, and look at that beautiful texture. We are going to add this to our card base, again with flat adhesive. So this is why I say these cards are fairly simple. Mostly it's been flat adhesive, just a little bit of texturing and some die cutting. I'm going to place this vertical center off to the right. And this, again, this was Cajun Craze, so we have another warm fall color. And you can see on my original, we have a circle layer. So how I achieved that circle layer was with my nice designer series paper. This is an easy cut. I have a 2 3/8 inch punch. I'm going to just slip it in. This is what I love about punches. No extra tools needed, just your punch. I've got my circle, and I am using this circle to bring in my flowers. If you just float the flowers without something to ground them, they kind of look lost. So I'm going to bring that in. Again, this pattern sort of mimics the embossing texture that we have going on. And here are my die cuts I'm going to be using. Pre-done. These are easy die cuts. Later this week, when I show you another card with the bundle, I will be sharing with you how I die cut as well. So I'm going to flip this over. This is one of those little branches. This time I cut in very vanilla, and it's flat. So I'm just going to put little dots onto the leaves, and you don't even have to put them on all of the leaves. Just bring it off to this side. We are going to layer up here. We have also another one of those twigs with the metallic paper. I'm going to bring that down as well. And just let it kind of float off. So far it looks a little bit messy. That's okay. We are going to be kind of clustering the flowers, and we still have embellishments to add. So liquid glue, I'm going to bring this up towards the top. Next, I'm going to bring in an early espresso flower and bring that off. I'm kind of pulling it out just the tiniest bit. Oh dear. I noticed there's one little piece of cardstock missing. And then finally, a basic beige flower, which I'm going to elevate with a dimensional. And we're going to bring that in right around there. Now, all that's missing is our sentiment. And let's see if I've got a piece of the, a scrap of the basic white, and this time it's a simple message of thank you. And I'm inking up same way I mentioned for cards number 1 and 2. And you can kind of see what I'm trying to avoid. I have a little bit of ink at the top there. Let's see if I can get it right. I'm going to just stamp down. I'm pressing firmly but not rocking. There we go. Being very careful. Now I need to trim that down. And I'm using my paper trimmer. And I think it's going to be just under an inch. So about, let's call it 5/8. Just bringing it over just the tiniest bit. And my special cut for my labels, my favorite special cut for my labels, is just a little angle cut. So I'm just going to bring in my snips, make one cut on the slant, and this is going to be placed on the card again with my Stampin' Dimensionals. And I'm going to tuck it in with my little cluster of flowers right in there. So my classic thank you. And almost done, except we need our embellishments, right? We're bringing in those streak dots, and I'm using a mixture of the large dot. So let's do one large at the front, and then at the back we'll do the smaller dots right in here, and one more, and there we go. There is our third card in the class. So my quick tip for you is don't overthink it. When you start simple and you focus on one feature like the texture or the die cuts, it's easy to create something that looks professional without a ton of steps. So do me a favor, tell me in the comments, do you love the embossing or do you reach for the pattern paper first? Which do you prefer? I'm hoping there's some embossing fans because I'm with you. It's an instant wow for embossing. Zero stress because it's fairly easy. There's not a lot of room for error. Everything pretty much goes as it should. So thank you card. Let's drop that back there. And then the first card, so grateful for that heart of yours. There you have it, 3 beautiful cards from the Label Me Grateful bundle. And each one reminds us that gratitude doesn't have to be fancy, it just has to be from the heart. If you would like to make these at home, remember you can get my kit for free with any $50 order in my online store through the end of the month. It includes all the pre-cut supplies and die cuts and texturizing. You will need the stamp set or something similar that you might have at home. You need your favorite adhesives and your ink and a little bit of creative spark, and I'm going to guide you the rest of the way through. So be sure to follow me on my page so you don't miss the next class. And if you're catching the replay, make sure you say hello in the comments and let me know that you're here. If you arrived late, you can always click over to YouTube, Just Stamp with Anna Marie channel. All right, my friends, let's see. Thank you for joining me. Until next time, happy stamping, and remember that every handmade card you send is a little piece of gratitude. So long for now, my friends.